Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Tariffs. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the All Access Podcast. I am your host, Michael Thiessen. Today is a very special episode. Today is the episode where we say thanks. And that is thanks to all of you listeners, first and foremost. But we want to say a very special thanks to all of the guests that we had on throughout the course of the year. Obviously, if you're listening to this one right now, we're finding ourselves at the end of 2025. And it's appropriate to do a little wrap-up episode of all the different touch points that we've had throughout the course of the year. Because there were quite a few, I want to really highlight some of the topics that we covered in that entire year. Hopefully, you've listened to all of the episodes throughout the course of the year. And then, of course, this wrap-up doesn't mean really anything to you, but hopefully you still enjoy the couple of items that we have to add to each one of these episodes and each one of the topics that we covered throughout the year. So, we covered really the modern manufacturing as a whole. And as you know this, we really covered the success of this, I don't know if you want to call it trifecta, but we looked at technology, we looked at talent, and of course we looked at the overall policy because, with government, when government gets involved, it gets all messy and it changes from day to day. And so we dug really into that, into these three topics, you may call it. We also looked at AI because all of you guys want to know about artificial intelligence. How can it help me? How can I improve my processes? And everybody jumps to this AI buzzword. We looked at the next generation workforce. You hear that particular buzzword flying around as if this is some viral trend. But all what it really is how do we get our younger generation engaged? And what do we need to do? So we looked into that. We looked at training grants and incentives, and we tackled trades and policies. We were all over the map, really. We looked at, and then also at the auto industry. If you work in the auto industry, like most of you molders and die makers do that listen to us, you know that the industry was up and down throughout the entire year, mostly down, I should say. But then also some of the mold makers and die makers kind of said, you know what, we need to diversify. We need to look at other areas. So that's when the aerospace industry really came into play. And we looked a little bit into that to see what does that look like? How do companies get involved in all of this? And then, of course, how do we develop talent? So these were all the topics that we kind of covered throughout the course of the year. And I personally think it was an exceptional year that we had so many different topics that we were able to cover and that we brought to you. So let me recap, and we start with not with the first one of 2025, but we're going to cover the last one that just aired just recently. And this was a very interesting episode with Tariffs. He's the founder of the TGS Advisory. And that's where we looked into how does government interact with us? How can they help us utilize our voices and change policy so that it becomes more beneficial for us to operate? We looked at the global trade challenges, and we talked a little bit about that, about how the tariffs impact us as manufacturer and maybe some geopolitical tensions. We looked at some strategies from mitigating risks and how can we get through this. But all in all, he gave some really good advice of how we should, or how you should maybe get with associations because they can have a bigger voice. But even you as an individual company can have a very large voice and have your issues be known to the various representatives of your government in order to benefit from this. There's so many grants out there, Terry also mentioned. Grants for training, grants for equipment, grants for overall technology, because all this work we want to get onshore again back in the US, and the government does help out. So you need to kind of look into that to see what is available to you. And then we talked a little bit about building resilience and leveraging the forecasting of risks. We talked a little bit about trade policy, but overall, I think it was a very, very interesting episode where we really tried to look at governmental affairs. And honestly, we want to stay away from politics and all that kind of stuff and government. But in this particular episode, we felt it was important for you to know that government can help you and engage with your policymakers to get further ahead. Then the one before that, the episode, that one was called How AI is Revolutionizing Quality Inspection and Manufacturing. Now that title alone should have really enticed you to listen to this thing. And you probably did, because AI is such an interesting envelope of topics that we try to understand and get our head around it, of how it all works and how we can apply it in the way how we're working today. And this is where we had Kevin Wang on from Unit X. Now, Kevin, very, very interesting individual, really had his focus set early on in life and looked into the mechanical engineering spectrum, but really listened to his mother and went down the line of mechanical engineering as well as his love for software and technology. And this is how he then utilized the items that he learned during his college time about AI and sampling of data, and how he can utilize this now in his inspection capabilities to automate that process even further. All of you guys use some kind of inspection technology for probing or anything like that. But this one takes it one step further. So we looked at the importance of automation. We talked about that. We talked about AI capabilities. We looked at how different CAM systems are ready for AI and so forth. We looked at the different size manufacturers. Then we talked a little bit about some of the skills gap and what is AI trying to do? Should we be really worried about on all of this? And we talked a little bit about the younger talent that was out there. And of course, we looked at the future outlook. What does he think of where AI is really going with this? So we looked at this AI-powered inspection system, how it can really help you utilize those kind of tools in your manufacturing capabilities. Then we had a really fun episode. I mean, if you ask me, this next episode was a ton of fun. These two individuals I knew for quite some time already. They're a staple on the internet, on technology, on manufacturing. From MTD-CNC, we talked to Tom Scubella over from the UK, and also from Tony Gunn, both of them from MTD-CNC at the time. Tony has now moved on and does his own stuff with TDM Global, and I think it's Worldwide Machinist, I think he's dealing with. But two very insightful individuals, because they see a lot of things that are out there either in the European theater or in the American theater or even Asian theaters that are happening with the industry as a whole. We talked about machinery. We looked at the global market outlook. How is it different between Europe and the US? And honestly, it's the same stuff all over the place. It's just a little bit different. We had a lot of fun talking about the different areas. Of course, there's a lot of jabbing going on. It probably gave you a smile just listening to it. And it gave me a smile, really. I don't see these guys with Tom and Tony all that often, but it was a ton of fun talking with them, but also talking about the technology and innovation. And then we touched on the subject about the workforce development and how this is being done in the different countries. And it's really insightful to hear what they have to say about the different workforces, how they're really geared up in the different countries and dealing with the young experts that are coming up through the chain, and what we have to do over here in the US potentially in order to bring that talent up. There's a lot of colleges and a lot of high schools already that are focusing on the machining side again, and we're welcoming that overall. We talked about these things. We talked about the regulatory pressures and opportunities for innovations. And overall, we talked about the manufacturing resilience and looked a little bit into the future, looked at that crystal ball that we call it up so often to see what's going on. And of course, we had to touch on the electrification of EVs, aircrafts, and all of that. Before that, I had joined just recently before this next episode. I joined the AMBA at a conference, and this is where Michael Thiessen, he's an economic expert from IT Economics, came on stage and talked about the tariffs and really cut through all the noise and the negativity that went on at the time, and probably still is, about our economy and the tariffs and how bad or good or wherever you stand on this topic of tariffs. And he really shined a light on these doom and gloom headlines so that we can make better decisions in our manufacturing environment. So it was really the reality versus the headlines arguments that we talked a little bit during that episode. We talked about the economic indicators, so where we think economy is going in terms of manufacturing, and also how it can help you make best decisions on when to purchase potentially machinery or industry goods that help you going forward. We talked about the uncertainty, as well as we gave really practical advice to all of the manufacturers that listen to us. Tips on budgeting. We talked about capital investment timing and the workforce planning. It really was an incredible, insightful episode that we covered with Michael. Hopefully you listened to that, because the tips and tricks that he gave are just incredibly helpful. Then I had the pleasure of dealing with 4 of my good friends. We talked about aerospace on a global scale. And I had the benefit of knowing individuals that are dealing in the aerospace business in Portugal, France, and Italy, and the UK, and of course us over here in the US. And I talked to all my friends from Tariffs. And so we talked to Peter Nunes from Tariffs Portugal, Guillaume Bassard from Tariffs France, Giancarlo Grinza from Tariffs Italy, and of course our good friend Paul Skelly from Tariffs UK about the different trends and challenges in the aerospace, how important that industry is for them in their own respective countries. What were some of the troubles or some of the issues that they were running into? And we looked at the technology and innovation that really highlights this particular industry. This industry looks at automation, they're looking at this digital twins, and they're looking at really advanced CAM solutions, because the material that they're dealing with are just so expensive. And making a mistake is not an option. So we talked about that. We talked about the workforce development, and I think you can already see a theme. We talked a lot about labor issues all across on all the episodes, and this one was no different. And we looked at the future opportunities in the different markets and technologies. If that's the additive manufacturing, we talked a little bit about that, as well as strategic investments and long-term success in the aerospace industry. So it was a great roundtable discussion where we really focused on key trends, and we looked at challenges within the aerospace, as well as, of course, the regular manufacturing industries across all the different countries. And then we stayed, actually before we did that episode, we stayed on this topic of aerospace. And we had Mike Stengel. He's the partner of the Aerodynamic Advisory Board. And he really knows his stuff when it comes to the aerospace industry. We took a deep dive into that industry, especially looking at the North American sector and looking at the current state as well as the future outlook. Of course, we always talk about the post-pandemic recovery, and this was no difference. We looked at that and looked at the commercial aviation, of how that industry is rebounding and coming back with a vengeance. We looked at the increase of the narrow-body aircraft. We talked about the supply chain challenges, and we know this darn well. Boeing and all the other aerospace companies that we have here in the U.S., if they bring out a brand new aircraft to be produced, there's not enough manufacturing or spindles here in the US alone to capitalize on all the work that is there. They have orders for years and years and years to come already in the books for aircrafts that have to be manufactured, and they don't have enough suppliers. So we talked about that, how important that is for our US operations, but then also we talked a little bit about the European or the worldly situations and how also they will be brought up with more and more aerospace needs and all that. Of course, like in all the other episodes, we talked about skilled labor because that is a problem. And he gave us some good advice on this. And then we looked at where does the aerospace industry go? Before that, we talked about the U.S. auto industry. At the very beginning of the year, we talked to Joe McCabe of AFS, or Auto Forecast Solutions. And he probably will be on again next year because really automotive is in our blood. I mean, we're in Detroit. Come on. If the automotive is not in your blood, or if you don't like cars, then I don't know. We talked about this changing landscape about EVs and ICE vehicles. Where's this going? What are the automakers doing? Are they putting a pause on? And by now you see some of the changes happening with the auto manufacturers where they're veering away a little bit from the strict EV more into the hybrids or the ICE again. We talked about the supply chain again, talked about different technologies and automation, digital twins also in the automotive, very, very important. And of course, we talked about the skills gap with him as well and getting his insight on this. But overall, it was more or less giving you a vision of what this year will bring. And I think he delivered, and he was right on target with all of his voodooery, I would call it. I don't even think that's a word. But yeah, I just get the look. No, it's not a word. But he had the foreshadowing, essentially, of what was going to happen this year. Then, actually, the very first episode that we covered, so we talked about the next-gen workforce. We had two individuals on from the Oakland technical campuses, or Oakland schools, here in our neighborhood. David Wyatt and Paul Galbensky were on. And we had a very good discussion with them of how they are enabling the youngsters, the young individuals, to find a trade or to assist them in their vision of a trade and give them the right tools to be successful. I mean, as you all know, trades are incredibly important for us in the manufacturing field because there's so much work to be done out there. And if every kid wants to go to college and wants to be a manager sitting behind a desk or wants to be a sales guy just like me, then they're not going to get any work done. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need welders, we need auto repair people and all that kind of stuff, and machinists. And these two individuals are doing an incredible job with our youngsters and giving them the tools, the right tools to be successful. Right from high school on, and they're getting their hands dirty and they're making stuff and they're learning about our workforce. And these two individuals are enabling these young teenagers to get really involved in our manufacturing world. So I think that's an incredible task for these two individuals. And I really congratulate them for doing such a great job with our youngsters and also within our industry. So I think you saw that we touched a whole lot of topics throughout the entire course of the year. We looked at labor force, we looked at tariffs, we looked at technology, we looked at the different industries with automotive and aerospace. We looked at all of those and tried to give you as many tools and as many tips that can potentially help you to be a better company, make more money, be more successful, and be just a great, great company and a great supplier for our automotive and aerospace industries. And we really, truly hope that all of the episodes that we put out this year you liked and you found valuable. But all in all, I want to give thanks to all of you that listened, that came back episode after episode. I've talked to some of you guys that came up to me at various conferences and even said, hey, I listened to you. Or it was my first time listening to you. It was rather interesting. But all in all, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to this podcast. You guys make this happen. If there would be no downloads, then we would have a very easy decision to make, and that is to stop it. But we have seen a lot of downloads from all of you. So thank you for doing this. We again hope you find the discussions that we have with the wizards and the technology experts and all of that insightful and valuable. Of course, today's episode was special, just recapping on what's going on. But if you like these episodes that we have put out, make sure that you don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that you click it, the All Access Podcast, so that you never miss those. Feel free to share the episode within your network and friends. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Actually, I need to do a call out to Tariffs as well as to Kevin Wang. They actually did that exact item. They contacted us and said, I really like listening to your podcast. Can I be on your podcast? I have this insight X, Y, and Z. If you want to be on the podcast, let us know. We'd love to have you. If you can help our manufacturers excel in what you do, leave us your feedback. For more updates, follow us on Instagram, on X, on LinkedIn. Click it and follow us. And all what I have left to say is thank you. Have a wonderful end of the year, wonderful Christmas time, a wonderful New Year's time. Make sure that you keep these machines running, you keep these youngsters tooled up, and I'm really looking forward to the next year and where we're touching on a lot more subjects. I can already tell you there's already one being planned, or actually two being planned, but one is going to be recorded here very soon. And you probably will see this at the beginning of the year. And this is where we're talking to two young ladies in the engineering field. And we really want to touch on subjects on why did they choose this engineering field or this manufacturing field? What enticed them to be in it? Because we're all about diversification, because there's a lot of young ladies out there that love to build stuff, that get satisfaction from having their finished part in their hands. And really that feeling is priceless. And so we're talking to two young ladies out of the industry about what made them join this particular workforce. And all what I have to say is thank you until next time, and keep shaping the future of manufacturing. Talk to you soon. See you next year. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebis's capabilities, visit our website at Tebis. That's TEBIS.com.